like a nice top-end spell for these strategies, but for me, it's really just how much do these core set 2021 cards affect the archetype. Jolrael Moonvolley Recluse combined with Teferi Master Time generates a lot of extra bodies. I'm curious just how good it is in a matchup like the Erecto Sacrifice deck.
And we'll get a look at it firsthand as we see Calcano's perspective here. Taking a look at what looks like a pretty solid opening 7 to me.
No, for sure. I mean, this is the classic Bant Ramp hand. You know, you just want to growth power early, kind of utilize that extra mana at your disposal to push you forward. And then, of course, the really powerful cycling effects of Teferi Time Raveler and Euro Titan Nature's Wrath just hammer home just how much velocity this deck can really generate in the early turns.
See Breeding Pool opening up. That'll enter tapped. Temple Garden and Forest Tower also in hand, so all the colors of mana, good amount of lands. A Ketria Triumph is picked up. That'll pair nicely with this Growth Spiral.
Yep, the Growth Spiral, this turn is usually like a little dead because there's very few 1-mana cards in the deck. So if you do draw Growth Spiral, you usually just want to put a Temple or a Triumph onto the battlefield to get that tapped land out of the way so that your untapped lands can actually come down later on and really affect things in a nice way.
First play from Merriam is going to be Priest of Forgotten Gods, and Calcano actually keeps the Triumph in hand, thinking he might want to cycle that at some point. Back on his turn, is going to deploy Teferi Time Raveler. Go ahead and bounce that Priest.
Yeah, I think if Calcano missed on a land, which he did off the Teferi draw, he was going to choose to hold the hold the Triumph if he hit another land, right? And since he missed, he decides to go ahead and play it. But he wanted to give himself the option. That's not something that I think I do enough, is give myself the option for the Triumph to be cycled later.
Yeah, for sure. The way it played out, he ended up playing it anyway, but there wasn't really a cost to doing that. He wanted to play the Teferi, so nice navigation there, though a Dreadhorde Butcher is going to cut down the rest of the Teferi. But how about a Master of Time as now the 4-mana Planeswalker is deployed?
Yeah, I mean, that seems pretty good. I do think Ross can choose to kill it next turn if he so chooses. He can attack it for 2. It'll get a 3rd counter from its ability, and then sacking it to the Witch's Oven should be able to take care of the Teferi. That is if he would like to do that.
A Dreadhorde Butcher, one of these newfangled card templates. It does grow when it hits Planeswalkers.
Honestly, a great shift in the paradigm, if you ask me. I think you should be rewarded for attacking Planeswalkers and players the same. I think that if you're going to have Planeswalkers kind of function like an extra life total or act similarly to yourself, then having creatures trigger when they hit player or Planeswalker makes sense.
Yeah. Merriam is going to connect at the Master of Time. It falls to 2 loyalty. Still will have the ability to loot later on this turn, though. And
yeah,
now Merriam puts the Butcher in the oven.
Yeah, just getting that off the table right now just seems so important. Here, I think you can probably just get rid of the Dovin's Veto. Even if you get hit with like a Claim the Firstborn, it's not that big of a deal. Your creatures aren't that huge. The Hydroid Krasis over time could represent more stuff, which I like, but this is a nice turn for Merriam, though.
Yeah, 2 Priests of Forgotten Gods showing up. The Teferi was cut down. Calcano is going to pick up Jolrael for turn and has a big Uro in the graveyard that was looted away before.
Yeah, I think he actually has the ability to go Jolrael and Uro from the graveyard after the activates the Fabled Passage. That's going to give him not only a body from the Jolrael to prevent from the Priest, but also another extra 2/2 from the Jolrael itself, because draw for turn as well as the Uro.
Honestly, that interaction is probably just the big draw on a Fabled Passage. Mana fixing, sure, but the 2 decks that really take advantage of it's going to be decks like Merriam's that are using Mayhem Devil, and then decks like Calcano's, which are using the card to escape. He's going to go a slightly different route, just going to be Hydroid Krasis, but that does draw a card, so a wolf made by Jolrael.
Yeah, and I don't hate it. I think the the thing that you really don't want to happen is to claim the firstborn and then sacked to the Priest of Forgotten Gods on your Euro. He's only going to get like 1 or 2 shots at the Euro here in the early turn, so you want to kind of make that be one of your last things if you can. It might not be possible, but you do want to try to do it if you can.
Yeah, and also once he lands on wanting to play Joel Rail, like waiting until you can Uro with Veto backup does make a lot of sense. Now Merriam's going to go to work with the Mayhem Devil. Joel Rail's going to get cut down.
Yeah, the Mayhem Devil, just a good pickup here for Ross, able to take care of the Jor-El for very little. Just a cracking of the food token and a sacking of Fabled Passage. Doesn't want to sacrifice things just yet to the Priest of Forgotten Gods. Wants a little more fodder to do that. Everything in play right now is pretty important for his overall strategy, I believe.
Now Uro is going to escape. Leaves just as a very Master of Time in the graveyard. And that is relevant. That was 1 extra card. That's a big Planeswalker, and the draw step for Calcano off of that Uro is Elspeth Conquer's Death.
Interesting spot for Calcano. He can choose to go ahead and play the Scavenging Ooze, eat something, gain a life. Could also choose to just hold up Dovin's Veto as well. Ooh, decides to go for the Scavenging Ooze and hold up Veto. I like this play quite a bit, actually. It cost him a lot of life, though, but I felt like he felt like it was worth it just to get that extra body onto the battlefield to make sure that the Priest of Forgotten Gods doesn't get to just eat the Euro.
Yeah, he's shocked in a pair of Hallowed Fountains to turn this on, but also that put him to 20.
Sure. So much life gain out of these Simic-based decks, man. Euro, Hydroid Crisis. Just over time, they just gain you so much life, and the addition of Scavenging Ooze just helps that even more.
Oh yeah, ton of life buffer in these strategies. Now Merriam's going to try to claw his way out of this. He'll start with Claim the Firstborn on Uro. Here comes Dovin's Veto. This was Calcano's plan, now executed.
Yeah, now executed and also well executed. He navigated these last 2 turns very nicely, choosing to kind of sandbag the Euro until he had the ability to utilize the Dovin's Veto to protect him from a Claim the Firstborn. I really like how Calcano sequenced it, and it might actually just straight up killed Ross this turn.
We saw a Castle Lockscreen activation, revealing that Merriam drew up to 2 cards in hand. And nice draw for Calcano. Nissa, Who Shakes the World.
Yeah, he can go Nissa, Who Shakes the World, and Elspeth Conquer's Death this turn, and plus the Nissa to attack for a huge chunk, and that's going to be all she wrote. Ross Merriam just can't keep up, man.
He can put Nissa on the stack, and that'll earn the concession from Ross Merriam.
Yeah. Gonna watch how Calcano's sideboards in this matchup on the time shifted here, and honestly, I'm not really sure what he wants to do other than maybe bring in some Glass Caskets, maybe another Scavenging Ooze, just to have a little more graveyard interaction to stop stuff like Cauldron's Familiar.
Yeah, Glass Casket, Tulsimer. Trying to interact on the battlefield seems to be the plan here.
Yeah, cards like Dovin's Veto, like it looks really good there, but you really need to divorce yourself from a scenario where a card that is particularly mediocre in a matchup ends up winning you game 1. I think that in that spot, Calcano is able to leverage the Veto to work for him, but more often than not, it's going to be a mostly dead draw because Ross Merriam's deck is like 90% creatures and lands and only has like a few non-creature, non-lands. And there's also a chance he just sides out Claim the Firstborn or something. But even though it is pretty good against Euro and Hydroid Crisis, maybe not.
You see Calcano boarding out the Inefficient and the Narrow. Like you said, Dovin's Veto going to the sideboard. And then some of the more expensive cards, trimming on Elspeth Conquer's Death, trimming on Hydroid Crisis.
No, for sure. I think you just want to lower your curve a little bit, be slightly more interactive, have a couple answers, like Glass Casket to some of those annoying creatures. But here it looks like we have a pretty solid over from Calcano. Just needs a couple of untapped lands here to really get the ball rolling.
Yeah, Joel Rail into Uro, possibly into Nissa. Land number 4 is picked up. That's helping on that front. Turn 2 Gutter Bones from Merriam. Not the most explosive start as here comes Joel Rail.
Now Calcano's going to gamble slightly here. May even trade because he doesn't have the untapped land and has a backup Jor-El. This is actually a potentially interesting one. Interesting situation.
Yeah, Gutterbones is coming in. Yeah, Calcano's going to consider the block.
I think the upside is just too high if you hit the untapped land.
Calcano agrees, so goes to 16. Merriam deploys Mayhem Devil. Another Triome picked up for Calcano, so it's a tapped land. We'll see how much damage Merriam can do untapping with Gutterbones and Mayhem Devil. There's a Fabled Passage. That's worth half a dual rail, but it looks like Merriam... I don't know, that's not the plan anyway. 1 point goes upstairs. Rankle, that's a good solution.
Yeah, and this is just one heck of a turn. If you're Merriam, you have to be super happy with this sequence because Calcano feels like he's getting absolutely buried.
Yeah, he got totally pranked.
Pranked on by crank on. I think you just draw a card. I would actually love to go sacrifice draw, and he does sacrifice draw. That's awesome.
Sacrifice draw. That's 2 points. Calcano to 4.
And the game's already over. There's no play here. The game's over.
Yeah, Calcano agrees.
Oh, Rankle, the master of prankles, does it again.
That card is really good.
Yeah, it also just does so much. You know, every scenario has like at least one good Rankle activation, including no activation.
Right?
Which is technically a mode.
I think that the ability that's really doing a lot of heavy lifting is just it's an evasive creature with haste and a reasonable amount of power. Then you mix in the fact that all these abilities can be particularly strong in different situations. You know, your opponent's got 1 card in hand, make him discard. You got some extra creatures or some stuff that's a little bit sticky that can come back from the graveyard, make them sacrifice their only creature. Right. You know, all this kind of stuff, and then you factor in synergies on top of that. It just plays very well with Mayhem Devil. You know, you have this whole sacrifice deck going.
No, I completely agree. I think there's so much to like about the card in that archetype. Like I love the card. You know, I played a lot of that mono black aggro deck in Pioneer, and I grew a real fondness for Rankle, a real respect for it. And it's no surprise to me to seeing it play in Standard. I'm just glad that it found like a real home.
Yeah, for sure. I always like it when the cards, when you're not sure how good they are, end up being very good but not oppressive.
Right. All right, looks like Calcano has a pretty solid start here on the play with Bant Ramp. Can Fable Passage for Forest, Growth Spiral on 2 into that tap Temple. Teferi on 3 to bounce something, draw a card. If Ross doesn't have like a 1-2-3 start, this Teferi Time Raveler might put him too far behind.
See how Calcano wants to manage these land drops. Actually starts with Fabled Passage.
Yeah, it's important to get that green here so that he can cast Growth Spiral on 2. Even though it enters tapped early, it is his only green source in hand at the moment.
Yeah, makes sense. Finds Forest, draws Uro. Plays the island, that means he has the ability to cast Growth Spiral. See what Merriam can do. Start with the Fabled Passage on his side as well. Witches of him is attempted, that resolves, and Gutterbones joins it. So now we see Growth Spiral. Temple put in 5 drops prior to the bottom, but now Island and Catch Your Triome in hand, so the mana's gonna work.
Yeah, and he also has been kind of drawing cards along the way and finding more lands, which is exactly what he needed. Teferi Time Raveler here can come down and bounce the Gutterbones, draw a card, kind of prevent that tempo from in the aggression from Merriam. Instead, decides to go for the extra ramp of Euro though.
Yeah, Uro's at the Triome, plays the Island. Pretty nice hand. Very Time Raveler, Hydroid Crisis, Elspeth Conquers Death, and Nissa Who Shakes the World. What does Merriam have in store on turn 3? We'll find out as we go back his way.
Interesting to note, if Calcano's able to draw land, he can go Nissa Who Shakes the World and the Teferi Time Raveler.
Draws Glass Casket.
Hmm.
Only has one white mana currently, the Ketria Triome. That's our teamer contribution.
Yeah, there aren't Bant Triomes, so unfortunately the mana is a little awkward here, but it's not too bad. Glass Casket can take care of something. The problem is he can't really play more than one spell unless he wants to play like a 1/1 Hydroid Krasis, which feels really weak.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe just, I mean, even a Nisu Shakes the World plus Untap won't allow him to use Glass Casket either.
So it lands on Nissa. He's going to untap an island. He'll attack. Seems his intention is his hope is to trade with that Mayhem Devil. Merriam does not oblige. Goes to 17.
Can't imagine this island is surviving or the Nissa is surviving. It'll be interesting to see exactly what Ross does in order to facilitate both of these things dying, but it looks like it's starting with Cauldron Familiar. We're most of the way there already.
Got the cat, got the devil, got the oven. This battle station is fully operational.
All right, now what?
Fabled Passage. That's point number 3 at the island.
All right, well, we're able to put the Nisu Shakes the World to 1. Let's see if we can find one more way to sacrifice to get it 1 extra point. Doesn't even need it.
Or Noxious Grasser Nissa jam for 5 and pick up actually pretty bad news for Calcano. It's not second white, it's actually Shatter the Sky, which he cannot cast.
Yeah,
it's very
only
Time Raveler.
White.
Gonna bounce to the devil, draws another Shatter the Sky. You know, there's some stuff that could be functional if Calcano can find a planes, but for now, the hand looking pretty awkward.
Yeah, and there's not a lot he can do about it either. Just kind of the luck of the draw. Just only found one of his white sources of mana when he needed to. Could have maybe sequenced slightly differently early in the game, but I don't think it would have allowed him to double spell very much or anything like that. And here, Ross is not even going to go after the Teferi just yet. Instead, he's going to let it hang around for at least half a turn. Can that Mayhem Devil at any point and sack the Cauldron Familiar to kill the Teferi, but might just be worth going for the Jugular.
Calcano at 11. We see a Temple of Malice scrying bottom for Merriam, and here is Mayhem Devil. All right, Fabled Passage. That's picked up by Calcano. That represents second white. Fairy goes to 2. Calcano's going to explore his options before committing to anything. He uses the Fabled Passage. That means Mayhem Devil gets to poke him down to 10.
Curious if he goes for Elspeth Conquers Death or Shatter the Sky. Looks like he's just going to go for Shatter. He can do it at instant speed. You might find a really good spot to do it here with maybe some triggers on the stack before other things happen.
See, Merriam is going to use the Witch's Oven end step. Sacrifices Cauldron Familiar.
And this time he's actually going to target the Teferi. Heads up play from Ross, realizing that the Shatter of the Sky here could be somewhat problematic.
Yeah, trying to force Calcano to do that on his own end step if he wants it.
The problem is, though,
to do it.
Yeah, but the problem is the Cauldron Familiar can still just come back and then attack the Teferi for 1, you know?
Right. Well, I mean, if he even still wants to go for Teferi, right? We saw him leave Teferi on the table before. And because it's our time-shifted match, we don't have the hand cam on Merriam, so we'll see what he has left over. I like the way he played that turn, though.
Yeah, some really nice sequencing from both players in this match, and just a really complex 1v1 here.
The cat has decided it does not like Teferi. Teferi down.
And honestly, mood.
You and that cat have something in common.
Yes. We lack food.
Merriam is going to sack the cat, bring it back right away. That means Gutter Bones coming out of the graveyard and being deployed.
Yeah, it's a little aggressive, but I do like the play. just to get the gutter bones back on the table. I feel like Ross just doesn't have much left in the tank here, and every little piece of damage matters. The Shatter of the Sky, I mean, that's not a huge deal. The cat still goes to the graveyard, so if you find any other creature to sack, you can get Cat Oven back online.
Village Rites in response to Shatter. So,
Yeah.
Battlefield cleared up. We'll see how Merriam can recommit. Calcano is at 8. Has a pretty meaty hand, though. Nissa Who Shakes the World was picked up.
Yeah. Ross really needs to close the game quickly here. Otherwise, the threat of Euro from the graveyard could be disastrous.
Mayhem Devil and a Blood Crypt. So, not that much. Temple Garden picked up by Calcano.
No, but it does continue to make Calcano be reactive instead of proactive. Like, for example, I don't think that Calcano can afford to Euro here. I think he actually just needs to go for, like, Elspeth Conquers Death. Perhaps he can go Nissa Who Shakes the World into Glass Casket and then attack for 3. I think that actually might be the play. Gonna opt for the ECD,
Elspeth
though.
Conquers Death. I like this. You solve the Mayhem Devil now, and there's some pretty good stuff in the graveyard already when you get to Chapter 3.
Yeah, that is going to turn on the cat, though. The cat was always getting turned on, but now he doesn't have the blocker from the Nissa Who Shakes the World, which is really what I wanted to make sure that your life total is protected as much as possible. With that said, the ECD, the earlier you get online, the faster you get that rebuy on a planeswalker or creature from the graveyard. And even something as little as bringing back Euro for basically a moment to gain 3 and draw a card might be enough and worthwhile enough to ECD there instead.
Devil and the cat put Calcano to 6. Merriam's going to play another land. Has had Castle Lochthwain hanging out. Would prefer to just have good ones already. Familiar is going to attack Calcano to 5. Another Witch's Oven. Okay. Now that cat's worth a lot of damage. Gutterbones is going to jump out of the graveyard. That'll be deployed again.
Yeah. He's close to just having Castle Lochthwain fully online as well. This is pretty scary.
Pretty big pickup for Calcano. Tulsimer, Friend of Wolves.
Mm-hmm.
That's some 3/3 blockers and some light. Well, he gains a life on the fight, doesn't he? How is his card templated? You gain 3 life and that creature fights. Alright, so you should gain the life no matter what it looks like.
Right. So he's going to go up to 8. He's going to be able to fight Gutterbones. Ross is going to sack it. He's going to sack the Cauldron Familiar. He's going to bring back the Familiar at least once. He may actually choose to just double sack Cauldron Familiar instead, just to keep that train going, since the fight is not connected to the gain life.
So
he ends up with an extra food out of it, I guess.
Fight target sacked. Oh, actually, no. It looks like the way it is worded, Calcano does not gain the life because the fight doesn't happen.
Ah, okay.
But Tulsimer, it says fight up to 1, right?
It does. No, maybe it doesn't. Honestly, it's fine.
Anyway,
just
here comes
let
the
it
cat
go.
from the graveyard.
The decisions were made. Things that have happened.
I'll tell you one thing. I'm never going to register a Tulsimer.
Tell you another thing. I'm never going to register a cat or an oven. That's not true. I have before.
All of these cards are very good.
That's true. 2 mainstays of the format. Elspeth Conquers Death versus Cauldron Familiar, Witch's Oven. We've seen the Elspeth Conquers Death be so good in so many scenarios. Here, all it did was kind of tackle a Mayhem Devil, but is threatening a really big swing next turn. Even if it's just some life gain off a Euro, that's a huge deal. Facing off against a Cat Oven combo at such a low life total.
Merriam's going to draw off the castle.
He's so close.
Away. Right. Just has 2 points on the table against an opponent on 4.
He's even already used Castle Octwain. Here, I actually was considering him maybe doing that, just doing a couple cat oven tricks just to buy some extra time. But he's also going to use it to just get back Gutter Bones and go ahead and play it because he's just got so little left over.
Yeah, hand must not be very functional, like you said. Goes for 1 oven activation and brings back Gutter Bones. And now Calcano gets to Chapter 3 on Elspeth Conquers Death. That means a free Nissu shakes the world.
Yeah, free Nissu shakes the world with a completely untapped side of the board, and he gets to play a huge Hydroid Krasis, or he can just play a Euro from the graveyard, or he can do both. I like a good both.
Both ain't bad. See an untap of a forest, you see an escape of an Uro.
Yeah, now comes time to smash. And crunch in for 9. See how Calcano wants to block. And another Krasis for next turn too. So we can attack for 9 and then play a 6-point, or no, sorry, it's a 5-point Krasis. It's pretty darn good.
And Merriam, as you can kind of tell the way he's been playing these turns, is kind of running on fumes too.
Right. Calcano looks like he's going to make a really, really conservative attack here, holding back the Tulsimer as well. I guess that's to maybe try to play around something like Claim the Firstborn. Maybe even isn't planning on playing the Hydroid Krasis to play around Claim the Firstborn. Huh. May even make a smaller Hydroid Krasis just to protect from that.
Yeah, just the 3/3 Wolf from the forest coming in. Merriam's at 17 now.
Could just do it for X equals 3 and then cast Glass Casket on like Gutter Bones or something. And that way Claim the Firstborn doesn't threaten him too much, but it might be best to just go ahead and gain the life. Considering doing it for 4 versus 5 versus 3, just a whole lot of micro decisions to be made. And I don't know which one is the true correct answer, but he goes with X equals 4.
Did he click on 4 and have no ability to undo? Is that what happened there? Because he had a mana floating at the end of it.
No, I think he could still cancel there if you haven't paid for the mana. I think he was just still debating with himself if he should just do it for the full 5 or just go for 4.
I just saw him hover over the emote. I wasn't sure what that meant. But, ooh, Claim the
That'll
Firstborn
do it.
and Rankle. Well, I know what that means.